Petchakale, Jyotirmayo Vayam Petchakale, Ayugatmanakam Rihadatmalingam. Translation: after reaching Satyaloka, the devotee is specifically able to be incorporated fearlessly by the subtle body in an identity similar to that of the gross body, and one after another he gradually attains stages of existence from earthly to watery, fiery, glowy and airy until he reaches the ethereal stage. Purport: anyone who can reach Brahma Loka or Satya Loka by dint of spiritual perfection and practice is qualified to attain three different types of perfection. One who has attained a specific planet by dint of pious activities attains places in terms of his comparative pious activities. One who has attained the place by dint of Virat or Hiranyagarbha worship is liberated, along with the liberation of Brahma. But one who attains the place by dint of devotional service is specifically mentioned here in relation to how he can penetrate into the different coverings of the universe and thus ultimately disclose his spiritual identity in the absolute atmosphere of the Supreme Existence. According to Jiva Goswami, all the universes are clustered together up and down, and each one and every one of them is separately sevenfold covered. The watery portion is beyond the sevenfold coverings, and each covering is 10 times more expansive than the previous covering. The personality of Godhead, who creates all such universes by his breathing, period, lies above the cluster of the universes. The water of the causal ocean is differently situated than the covering water of the universe. The water that serves as a covering for the universe is material, whereas the water of the causal ocean is spiritual. As such, the watery covering mentioned herein is considered to be the false egotistic covering of all living entities. And the gradual process of liberation from material coverings, one after another, as mentioned herein, is the gradual process of being liberated from the false egoistic conceptions of the material gross body, and then being absorbed in the identification of the subtle body until the attainment of pure spiritual body in the absolute realm of the kingdom of God. Srila Sridhar Swami confirms that a part of the material nature, after being initiated by the Lord, is known as Mahatattva. A fractional portion of the Mahatattva is called the false ego. A portion of the ego is the vibration of sound, and a portion of sound is the atmospheric air. A portion of the airy atmosphere is turned into forms, and forms constitute the power of electricity or heat. Heat produces a smell of aromas by the earth, and the gross earth is produced by such aromas. And all these combined together constitute the cosmic phenomena. The extent of cosmic phenomena is calculated to be diametrically both ways 4 billion miles. Then the covering of the universe begins. The first stratum of the covering is calculated to extend 80 million miles, and the subsequent covering of the universe are respectively of fire, effulgence, air and ether, one after another, each extending 10 times further than the previous. The fearless devotee of the Lord penetrates each one of them and ultimately reaches the absolute atmosphere where everything is of one and the same spiritual identity. Then the devotee enters one of the Vaikuntha planets where he assumes exactly the same form as the Lord and engages in the loving transcendental service of the Lord. That is the highest perfection of devotional life. Beyond this there is nothing to be desired or achieved by the perfect yogi. Durgame parimendasya skalapate gatirmahu svakripa yustadana shanta shantu avalambanam. So this purport is filled with lots and lots of facts given to us by Srila Prabhupada about this material universe and outside of this material universe. So he's talking about Srila Jiva Goswami and his comment about how all the universe is clustered together, up and down, and each one of them is separately sevenfold covered. So there's I can't remember now, it's Jiva Goswami or what's in the Garga Samhita. It's Jiva Goswami, I'll quote it. But I think it's in Gopal Champu, correct me if I'm wrong, that Jiva Goswami was talking about Lord Brahma, who was in great distress because there were so many demons on this planet, big demons. So this universe, the point that we're getting from this particular purport is that this universe is homogeneous. That is a hard thing for people to think about, that people got this concept that we're on this tiny little ball, this Earth planet, right? And out there is so much fascinating stuff, right? But like the scientists that everybody relies on say, we can get there. See that place there? There's a black hole there, and there's life on this planet there. But it's really incredible from the material perspective, because I'll just give the material perspective, and then we can get in relation to ship what's going on here. From the material perspective, we have like what the scientists know. What do they know about speed of light and light years? So speed of light is like 186,000 miles a second, right? Did you learn that at school? 186. Everybody learns that at school. Speed of sound, it's 700 miles an hour, right? And speed of light, way faster than sound, right? 186,000 miles a second. Think about that. And then how far is the nearest galaxy? 25,000 light years away. That's how far the nearest galaxy is. So, according to science, of course. So think about that. You'll never get there, right? Never, ever get there. So what it is, it isolates this planet here, and this whole philosophy comes from the impersonalist philosophy of the Big Bang Theory that, well, I don't know if it's even impersonal philosophy, it's just this sort of theory, atheistic theory, that there was this huge sort of explosion and everything just sort of come together. The two little amoebas formed, and from there we had plasmas, and from plasmas we get all this sort of, maybe we've got DNAs, and then we put them together and we've got all this wonderful life form here. This is how it all happened. After millions and millions and billions of years, even all the days of Lord Brahma, you couldn't actually get this to happen by natural selection. It is not really possible. And so therefore conclusion is that we're just a product. We're lucky to be here, as simple as that. And then they can throw everything out, and then we'll find where we're going now. Leave it to us, But that is the theory of the materialist, that we just come from something. Then the theory, the fact is, the Vedic scriptures say no, this place was designed. Bhagavad Gita chapter 7 verse 4, about the living entity yayadam durite jagat tribi gunamaye bhave mama maya. Yeah, the three modes of material nature are very difficult to overcome. Is it about the living entity sort of struggling hard with the modes of material nature, and he's sustaining the universe? That's the old translation of the Bhagavad Gita. I can understand that one. That the living entity is sustaining the universe, simply because actually this universe is created for the living entity, for us to live in. It's just like, you can give an example, say, Prabhupada sometimes uses a prison house, but I can talk about example of, like, recently in last year, COVID, right? So some countries really suffer from this COVID, you know. So then they say, well, there's so many people in need of help, we'll create a hospital. So they clear a field and they create a hospital for patients who are suffering from COVID, right? So what do you do when you create a hospital? Just like we're doing a big hospital in Kingscliff, if you go past, they're huge. So you create one, and so you house it with beds and medicine and nurses and doctors. You plan it, you make a plan. So when the hospital opens and it fills up with full of sick patients, is there someone to look after it? So in a similar fashion, this whole material universe is like a prison house that's been created for all these living entities like us who have aspersions that we want to enjoy like God. We've turned our back on Krishna somewhere along the line, so Krishna says, okay, I'll create you this sort of situation here. And you've got this situation here where you can enjoy like me, but it's a perverted reflection. And just so you understand that because you're eternal, you can't enjoy this material nature, you have to take birth and death, right? So then Prabhupada in the 3rd chapter gets on about, starts talking about all the different elements that is created in this material universe. So we understand from the Bhagavad Gita that there's 26 elements in this material universe. So elements in this sense is things that help us, the living entities, survive in this material universe. So it took me 35 years to understand these material elements, so I think I have a little bit of a grasp on it, so I'll try and tell you in 5 minutes. It's really interesting. So the first elements that we have are the earthly elements, the material elements, what we see like in our gross body, like we have earth, fire, water, air and ether, yeah. So you mix them all together and you get blood, bone, mucus, pus and urine, I don't know, whatever. You get everything in the material body, right? This is what we see. This is our earthly body. So these are the first 5 elements. Now, what was really confusing for me is when I went to school, I learned about the periodic table. Do you know the periodic table? In chemistry, we all had to do it. How many elements are in the periodic table? Remember? Well, I was 108 when I went to school. I think there's a few more now, isn't there? Like maybe 126. Yeah, we talk about hydrogen, oxygen, strontium, whatever else there is, carbon. You know, they're all sort of different elements broken down, different things. Well, these elements are in the first four elements that are discussed in the 26 elements of the Vedic cosmology. So, you know, there we have, like, you know, all these elements in this body. You know, we breathe air. What's air? Oxygen, nitrogen. What's water? H2O, you know. So these elements are there in our basic elements. But then when we get into the subtle, when we get into ether, what elements describe ether? I don't know. I don't think there's any to describe ether. Okay, so that's the first 5. And then we get on to the next 3, right? We get on to the subtle elements, which is our subtle body, right? It's our ethereal body, as Prabhupada describes here, and that's Kammano Buddhya. The mind, the ego, and the intelligence, right? So that's our subtle body, mind, ego, and intelligence, our false ego, our mind. Radhanath Swami was telling us one time that our mind, you can feel like we have a computer. In the old days we used to have computers. I remember IBM. They used to have big computer houses. There used to be one right below us when we found that temple in King's Cross. There was this whole big 2-story building full of computers, right? Well, these days, just about all that's there in our mobile phone in our pocket. That's how it goes. But so the mind is like this huge computer that can fill vast tracts of space, but it's on the subtle level. So when someone walks in, they bring their mind with them. So sometimes there's an interaction. So the mind is actually, because what we know of our mind is just a fraction, what we're experiencing according to our intelligence and our ego. But the mind is a compilation of thousands and thousands of births that we've had together. They're all there, spirit, soul. It remembers all these, and it's all there in mind. We can't remember them, but it's all there. And until we actually eliminate that, that's what Prabhupada's talking about, then that mind is there. So we have the 5 subtle elements, and then we have the 5 gross elements, 3 subtle elements, that's 8. And then there's 3 sets of senses. This really confused me for a while, but what we have is the knowledge acquiring senses. Knowledge acquiring senses, working senses, and the senses. So like there's the sense of sight, sound, hearing, and smell and touch. Right? So you've got those there. They're elements, they're out there, just like air is there, so the senses is there. And so different species pick up these senses, just like the sense of smell. So we need knowledge acquiring senses to do that. So what's knowledge acquiring senses for the sense of smell? Yeah, or the sense of taste, mouth, the eyes. So that's the knowledge acquiring senses to attain those sensual elements. And then we have working senses. So the working senses, like the hands that work the senses, the legs, and what else do we have? Anus and the genitals, right? So, okay, so we see a flower, right? Sense of sight. So with our working senses, we pluck the flower, offer it to the Lord, just like it's going on right now on the altar. And then we smell it with our nose. You get that? And we get that sense of smell with our nose. So the smell, the nose is knowledge acquiring, and the hands are the working senses, right? And what's amazing out there is that we as human beings get a certain set of senses, right? So we've got these all grouped around our face. We can smell things, but we can't smell them as good as other animals like dogs, you know. Dogs have got a keen sense of smell off they go. That's why they get them to track people who are lost and stuff like that. Dogs are really good. And a sense of sight. Somebody else like the eagle. You see the eagle hover right up in the air, like way, way up in the air. You can hardly see them. They come flying down. You can see a fish in the water, right? So there's the different senses that are out there for different living entities, right? But what we have is we have a particular set of senses that help us understand who we are. It's not like we want to sort of see forever. There's that song, I can see for miles and miles and miles. We don't want to do that, you know. We just have enough sensual perception to actually understand that we're not this body. So this is what we've been given. So there's another 15 elements. See, everything's grouped around the body. So all these elements are created for us to be here in this material world. So we're up to 23. That's not too hard, is it? And then there's the next one, which is the Mahatattva. That's the Mahatattva. You need all these chunks of matter and everything, which actually Lord Brahma can play with and create all these bodies. That's 24. And then the 25th one is the soul, right? So nothing moves until Lord Vishnu comes in his form and impregnates these bodies with the soul, and then he, along with the soul, creates the life. And there's one more element. Anyone know? Ahankara is the Mahatattva, yeah. Oh, the three modes, I forgot the three modes. Yeah, pradhana. That's the goodness, passion and ignorance. So for the bodies to get different senses, to acquire the different senses, you need a different sort of set of perceptions. So some bodies have the perception according to the mode of ignorance. Some animals, like they want to fight, they want to eat flesh, so they get a particular type of sense for that. And others are in the mode of goodness, like the cow just eats grass and gives milk, that gets another set of senses. And as do human beings. So we all acquire the same sense, but according to our mode, the mode that we choose, we also choose the next body like that. So like a body of a fish. It's always one fish is food for another fish. Is that the word? In the ocean. So they just eat each other like that. So it's not a great body to be in. So that's according to their different senses. So of course their sense is a sense of taste and a sense of sight, but they don't have any hearing. In the water you don't basically have any hearing, right? So anyway, that's the three modes. And the last one is time. So time activated, it's like bang, let's go. And the whole universe starts spinning and spinning and spinning and spinning. And it goes on for so long. So Day of Lord Brahma, it's just, we heard that yesterday, I think. It was just like a little bit of controversy there. The Day of Lord Brahma and the Year of Lord Brahma. So it's just, it's almost infinite for us in our mind, because it's just a whole bunch of noughts at the end, right? So this is how long the universe goes, but then it is also wound up. So this is the prison house that's been designed, a brilliant prison house, you know, and it can only be designed by the extreme super intelligence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That it can't be anybody else. It's just like the DNA atoms. How do we work the DNA atoms that it all comes together and everything's DNA and everybody can trace everybody? It's just the intelligence of the Supreme Lord, and everything really fits together. It was like, I had this conversation yesterday just out the back here. I just encouraging a vegan person. That, you know, like we have ahimsa milk here, so we don't hurt the cows, so it's quite all right to drink the milk, you know. For health, some vegans are vegans for health reasons, can't drink dairy, but anyway, milk is there. But then the answer came that, well, you're depriving little calf of the milk, you know. Well, I had to say that that's not right, that's God's plan, that there's enough milk for the calf. We leave milk for the calf, and there's ample milk from the cow for the human beings. This is how it's been for millions of years, right? But some great vegan activists are rewriting the records, you know. It's different. No, it doesn't work like that, you know. And similarly, there's other sort of things being rewritten, but I'm just thinking simple things. Like sheep, you know, like sheep, human beings need clothes, and sheep grow wool. And when they grow so much wool, they become uncomfortable. They can't shed it themselves, can they? You have to have someone to cut it off, and they're very grateful. And then we make clothes out of it. Everywhere you look, every single creature, there's a sort of plan for this creature, and it's also a plan for human beings to exist. We have cow milk, we have dairy products, we have so many different other things that are there. The seasons are there for us to enjoy material life. So this is a wonderful plan of the Lord. So it is so good that sometimes we get really, really comfortable in this sort of situation, in this material world, particularly if we don't know of anything else. So we get back to the purport here that the devotee reaches Satyaloka. So there's three types of people that reach the topmost planet, Lord Brahma. There's one that actually performs the austerities, one who has attained place by dint of Vajrayana and the Agarbha worship, Maybe if someone wants to know, Maharaj might be able to elaborate a little bit about Hiranyagarbha at the end, I'm not quite sure, myself. And the one who has attained place by dint of devotional service specifically mentioned here. So the devotee can actually go to all the higher realms. He doesn't need a spaceship. He doesn't need to wait 25. He can get there by the dint of the mind and the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But what Prabhupada says is that we need to shed our material coverings. Just like Srila Prabhupada says that there's life on the sun planet, right? But we can't go there in our material bodies. Why? Because we're going to burn up, because our bodies are made of earth, right? So then earth will shrivel up, the water will dry up. So what do you need to live on the sun planet? Fiery bodies. Bodies made of fire, air and ether, right? So similarly, as you go through all the different planets, they shed the coverings, all the different planets, they shed their coverings. So when you get to the higher planets, it might be just that the bodies aren't made of earth, earth, water and fire. They don't have any of that in their body, they just have air and ether. It's almost ethereal bodies, but still the air. So those bodies look similar to our bodies, but imagine how lighter they are, and they live a lot longer. They don't suffer distress, disease, and the level of enjoyment is far greater than what is here, thousands of times greater. So ultimately, I think Prabhupada is saying that when we get to Brahmaloka, we just have an ethereal body. He said finally, the last body is that we get rid of air. That's the topmost planet, right? But that's still one element there that's holding our subtle body together. It's still our material body. Srila Prabhupada says in the Bhagavad Gita, Brahma Bhuvana Loka, from the highest planet to the lowest, all the places of misery, because he's still got repeated birth and death. Doesn't matter how long Lord Brahma lives. Somewhere along the line, Prabhupada said that we've all been Lord Brahma at one stage. It's really something to think about, you know. So we've all had these really, really immensely long lifetimes, but hey, we're all here again. Why? Because we've had so many thousands and thousands of births. So we're here again. We have to do it all over again. So this is what happens in the material world. We can't get out. We're prisoners, we're like lifers, we can't get out unless we get a pardon, right? And what's the pardon? The mercy of the Supreme Lord. And what do we do to get a pardon? He just said in this age of Kali Yuga, just simply chant the holy name of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Rama, Hare Hare. Then the devotee enters one of the Vaikuntha planets where he assumes exactly the same form as the Lord, engages in loving transcendental service of the Lord. That is the highest perfection of devotional life. Beyond this, there is nothing to be desired or achieved by the perfect yogi. Does anybody have any questions or comments?
Just reading at your example to our vegan friend in regard to the milk and the calf needs a try. Another calf provides so much milk. If the calf is just allowed, it will just drink and be sick. Also, I read an interesting article about the sheep. You mentioned about the sheep. There was an interesting article in Victoria recently. There was a sheep that wandered off from the flock and had grown a fleece of like 35 kgs. And as you said, that if they can't sort of, discard it themselves, they can't do it. So this sheep was found and was really suffering. It was really, really suffering, and the whole article described how it was brought into a special facility and they had to, it had a lot of problems, health problems because of the excess fleece. And so they shore all the fleece off, and the sheep, there's pictures of the sheep after, so they were so happy that
jumping up and down for joy.
So as you said, that's a good point you made about the design. All these things that are certain animals meant to live in certain ways, or other animals meant to live in other ways. This is all a design of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the cows with the milk and then the sheep with the fleece and with the wool and everything like that. So, because people don't understand the bigger picture of everything and the design of everything, they start to think about it and themselves and come to wrong conclusions quite often about what that idea is. And then just in regard to your answer, Hiranyagam ritual, it's a ritual where you worship Lord Vishnu. And then you supposed to give a donation. Brahmins come, they do mantras and ceremony, and you worship Lord Vishnu, and then you give in donation and gold and pot, signifying the gold and everything. So there's a certain type of ritual. So if one is very expert and performs that very nicely, by that they can elevate themselves to the Brahman.
To the highest planet. I was fishing around for the point I was trying to make before, and thanks for bringing it up, Maharaj. It's this material world not only looks after human beings like that, but all the 8,400,000 species of life, they're all looked after by the Lord. And still living on the farm, you can just really, really notice that at one point in time, 3 months ago, we had these beautiful green king parrots come and eat the berries of that tree, right? Then they fly away, then you don't see them. And then the cockatoos come along and eat the almonds, and then all these different actually species are there, and that food is given for them, and specifically they eat that food, and this is how they survive. They've got that instinct. Some birds, this is the amazing point, that they might land on one island, like in Coffs Harbour, this Muttonbird Island. It's called Muttonbirds. I don't know what to call them. There's probably another name for them. But they all fly to the Philippines at one point in time, like in October or something, because there's probably some food there or something. Then they come back here to procreate. And then up near Bundaberg, we go on, there's the turtles that come all the way from South America, those big Ridgeback turtles, huge. We watch them, they come onto the beach, they turn off all the lights, so even McDonald's turns off its lights so they don't see any distraction. They race onto the beach if they suspect anything, they race back into the sea. And there's about 20 people follow them because they look forward, they look in front, they can't look backwards, so we're all following them, right? And then they go into the sand, they dig this huge hole, right? And you see them drop there, they lay about 20 or 30 eggs, right? Once they've done that, then they swim way back to South America. They just leave the eggs there, right? Then 6 weeks later, these little eggs hatch, these little turtles pick out. They leave a chute. They leave a chute going up the sand. Get this, right? And then the turtles come out through that chute there, and then they've got to make a dash for the beach, right? And in the meantime, all these living entities are waiting to get them, like the hawks and the birds. That's their food, right? That's their food. And then they swoop down on them, and a small minority makes them to the sea. And then they've got to sort of feed themselves up, and then they swim back to South America. Like this is the Lord's plan now. It's all over the place, everywhere. This is just so intricately done that it's beyond our sort of comprehension. So this is why we give thanks to Krishna for this wonderful creation and for maintaining us living entities. He's definitely our saviour and our maintainer. So this is for everybody who believes that actually Krishna has created this cosmic manifestation. He's given the process for us to get out. And end of problem solved. We don't have to worry about so many different philosophies or how we, what we should do with our life and stuff like that. All the answers are here in the Srimad Bhagavatam Bhagavad Gita. And the Guru, Krishna consciousness, Sadhu, Shastra and Sangha. Any more questions, Prabhu?
Is the subtle body made of the subtle elements?
Subtle body is made of mind, ego and intelligence.
Yes, but they are made of the subtle elements?
Yes, they come from the elements, yes.
So they're made more of ether and air?
No, there are elements. This is a little difficult to understand. Mind is a subtle element of mind, as you were described. It's actually, you can't see it. It's like, the soul is there, and these are coverings over the soul. So the first covering is the subtle of mind and intelligent false ego. It's actually a material element, but very subtle, and it covers the soul, and then the next covering is the more grosser ones. And then there's all the other things around there, so to describe it.
Just around the body, not the universe.
That's only
Yeah. It's around the body, you mean, not the universe. The covering's also there around the universe as well.
yeah.
Yeah.
I just wondered quickly,
Yes.
as I understand it, sheep were originally, they can shed their wool themselves. It's just because we've interfered with them that's why they keep their wool on them. But they're desert animals, so like it just to extend on your point that Krishna creates everything with purpose, and like it's just because we've interfered with them that they now have the problem that they have too much wool if we don't have it, because originally they would shed their own.
Well, yeah, I'm not quite familiar with that. Maybe in Satya Yuga where there's no work done, maybe that was right or something. But in Kali Yuga, this is what happens, you know.
Yeah,
But we go back, like not only sheep but goats and so many other, you know, creatures give like things for weaving and clothing.
Yeah.
So yeah, so maybe at one point in time.
I would say naturally, like how Krishna created them, as I
Yeah.
understand it, is that naturally they do shed their own wool. It's just that because we've interfered with them.
I'm totally out of my depth here where the sheep shed their own wool in some time previously. I really can't help, I don't know that one there.
This one,
Too hard. Sorry. Stumped the champions there. Okay, but for intents and purposes, the point I was making about sheep also is to sort of enhance the fact that cows have always given milk to human beings for so many thousands, millions of years. So, you know, go on.
Thank you very much for that wonderful class.
Oh, right, okay.
It's terrific. Just speaking about the turtles, the sea
Yeah, of Bagara, yeah.
I was looking up something about this. I think it's in Gita 5, chapter 5, verse 6, and it talks about how this is just the wonderful way Krishna creates, is that the turtles raise their young by meditation, the fish raise their young by looking, and the birds raise their young by touch. So with those turtles, it was an interesting class that Korma gave actually recently, and those turtles actually once, you know, when they go to lay their eggs, they can travel to the exact place where they were born originally, and then the eggs are laid and the turtles go back into the ocean. And then those baby turtles, those who actually make it to the ocean and hide, they can actually find their mothers, and they recognise each other.
They recognise their mothers, how's that? Chintarup was saying to enhance the point I was making that some of those baby turtles that actually make it to the ocean will swim across the ocean to wherever they're going, and they will go to that spot where all the other turtles are, and they can recognise their parents, their mothers, like that. So, just just another amazing fact.
Krishna's thought it out very, very, very well.
Yeah, terrific. Thank you. Jai, any other? All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Jai, Krishna.